Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Rico and this is Relatively Sound, the channel where the damage is done. Today, I'm back to review the latest album from the rock band Toadies. It's their 8th studio album and it is titled The Charmer. Toadies are one of those bands where I was really into them when I was younger, and although I am still into them, I don't listen to them as much. Not because of the music they've released over the last couple years or anything like that. It's just they're one of those bands where I enjoy, but I have to be in the right mood to listen to them. That said, their last album, the one released in 2017 titled The Lower Side of Uptown, was definitely by far my least favorite Toadies album. And they haven't really released a full studio album since. They've released some singles, some older songs, some live music, but they haven't really had an album since then. And that maybe is part of why I haven't listened to them as much, because they really haven't put out any new material for me to listen to. So when it was announced years and years ago they were working on a new album with legendary producer Steve Albini, everyone got excited. Then unfortunately Steve Albini passed away a couple years ago and the project came to a halt. Until finally it was finished and released last month. Going into the album, I will say the 2 songs they released had me kind of feeling mixed about it. And that's because the first single that was released, the title track, The Charmer, was one of those songs where it was kind of a slower song, not super energetic. It kind of builds but doesn't really go anywhere. And, you know, the Toadies have done this type of song before in the past, and it's never usually my favorite. But this one felt even less rock than some of their other songs. It felt even more simplified. It felt even more laid back than normal. And I think a lot of people kind of felt that way. They didn't dislike the song, and I don't really dislike it either, but I was more kind of surprised by it, more perplexed, and more like, is the whole album going to be a little bit more laid back? So then they released the song Damage, and I like that one a lot more, mostly because it's a faster, more energetic rock song. This one, though, did feel a little different than your standard Toadies song, because it felt more like in a major key. It felt kind of happy, which you don't normally get in a Toadies song. So off the bat, I was kind of like, oh, I like the song a lot more. Yeah, the vocals maybe seem a little rough. You know, Vadian's vocals aren't going to be like how they were 20 years ago. But I enjoyed the overall feel of the song. The lyrics kind of were funny. The protagonist, him and this other person, start laughing about the thought of being happy because they're in a relationship where the damage has been done. And I'm like, yeah, I like this. I like this kind of tongue-in-cheek feel, cool little guitar solo. Like, I'm like, this is kind of what I'm hoping the rest of the album is. So then when the album came out and I listened to it, first song is a song titled Ash's Theme. And I'm already kind of like, this is interesting. Maybe not so interesting in the sense that it's a opening track that is instrumental, because if you know the Toadies, they are not a stranger to that. I mean, their debut album, Rubberneck, which is probably still their most popular album, starts off with Mexican Hairless, which is just this kind of punky, fast, energetic instrumental song. What was surprising was this isn't super fast, energetic, at least not at the beginning. It's kind of a slower song, kind of builds, has these different guitar riffs, this kind of really sludgy, fat bass line, interesting kind of drums throughout. It feels dark, but it also feels kind of more mysterious. It doesn't just feel like dark, heavy, weird that the Toadies are kind of known for. It feels a little bit more complex. So when the song finishes, I'm like, wow, an instrumental song I really enjoy, because usually I'm not an instrumental type of person. I really enjoy vocals. Even more so, I really enjoy lyrics. That said, are the Toadies a band I go to for lyrics? Not necessarily. They are a band I go for more just like the kind of aggression, the kind of angst. So, but I really like this opening track. It does lead into The Charmer, which still isn't my favorite song, but I enjoy that there was kind of a segue. You know, you can hear the beginning of The Charmer bleed from the ending of the opening track, which I always enjoy when an album's kind of segued like that. But as the rest of the album goes on, I will say I was kind of disappointed. Not maybe so much that like the band did anything bad or the band writing boring music. I just think maybe as I got older, these type of songs just don't hit me as hard as when I was younger. I mean, I could still go back and listen to songs from Rubberneck and really enjoy them. Hell, I still think their sophomore album, Hell Below Stars Above, has even more interesting songs and even more dynamic songs. And I really love their kind of almost like comeback album with Play Rock Music. And even the album before that, Feeler, which was supposed to be their sophomore album that they ended up re recording, has some of their more laid back songs that I find to be their most interesting because they're not just heavy rock songs with like the weird chords. There's like some kind of more slower paced songs. So going into this album with that opening track, I thought maybe we'll get more songs like that. And yes, the album isn't filled with like super rock, chunky riffs. Like it does have some more quieter, some more songs that kind of like build. My issue with the album is that a lot of the songs just kind of suffer from what Tony has now claimed on this channel to be chorus ad nauseum or verse ad nauseum. Lyrically, this album, it's like a lot of the same phrases just repeated and repeated. And I get it, this band was never necessarily like the most, poetic band. He's written and released some songs that are like, emotional or complex. Songs like The Appeal from the closing song from Play Rock Music. That's one of my favorite Toadies songs. Just because the lyrics just kind of hit so deep. You have songs that I think are kind of more like culturally like interesting, like I Burn or Tyler, storytelling songs. On this album, I don't know, it's just a lot of like, I look at the track list and it's just like, okay, Long Time is just him singing Long Time a lot. Normal is just him singing Normal a lot. Closer to You is like, and I think the other thing too that brings this album down for me is that like, there's not a lot of hooky moments in the album. Even though it's like a lot of the same, verses or choruses repeated, nothing really sticks with me. Like, I listened to this album like I think 2 or 3 times in a row, and there was only like a handful of tracks that I could remember how they sounded like. And I will be honest with you, when this album came out, I gave it a good couple listens because I was going to record this video and review. Of course, I got delayed because of our move, something I kind of talked about in the last episode. So when I went to record this episode today, I had to kind of go back and listen to the songs, and I'm just like, a lot of these songs, like, I just can't really remember. And then when I listen to them, I'm like, okay, Come to Life kind of begins with acoustic guitar, which I thought was going to be interesting, and then it's just kind of a lot of the same verses repeated and repeated. Long Time kind of has that backing vocal, which is very different for the Toadies and for this album, but I just don't feel like they pull it off like other bands do it. It sounds a little forced, it sounds a little corny. Closer to You I feel like kind of gets to something that you would have heard on a previous album, like Beside You from Play Rock Music, but it's just not as powerful. And a lot of these songs, like, I don't know, like, you get kind of the slower bluesier songs or the slower kind of southern rock songs, and, like, they just don't push the envelope anymore. They just don't do it for me as much anymore. Maybe part of that is me. Something I will be very curious to see are Toady fans digging this album? Are they liking it as much as previous albums? Because I'll say this, I think maybe I do like it a little bit more than the Lower Side of Uptown, because that was an album that I thought like was even more forgettable. Like, I've only heard that album maybe 3 times in its entirety because something about it just did not click with me. Do I think it's a bad album? No, but it's just like it wasn't born enough to be like talked about enough. It wasn't bad enough to be like good. It was just kind of like whatever. And I think maybe this album's a little better, because I will say one thing about this album that I do kind of like is the production. Steve Albini's not a producer for me that like I always love his production. Like, I like it on the Frames album For the Birds, because the Frames kind of sometimes do weird songs, weird production choices, and that's kind of, I feel like, up Steve Albini's, sleeve. Like, that was something he was kind of known for, some more raw sound. And I felt like the Toadies, oh yeah, they could be a raw band. Like, they'll be a perfect, he'll be a perfect producer for them. And I don't know, like, maybe the Toadies just, this is not the sound I want from them. I don't want a raw, kind of simplified, lo-fi, album. I want something a little bit more sleek. Maybe I want something a little bit more poppy. Maybe I want something a little bit more catchy, or maybe I want something just with more dynamics. Like, Come to Life, I feel like I wanted more acoustic guitar moments, Like, I'm not saying I want, like, piano ballads from the band, but, like, that's why I feel like sometimes I listen to the Burden Brothers 2 albums more. If you don't know, Burden Brothers, a band, when the Toadies broke up, Veda Todd Lewis, lead singer, started. And those albums were kind of to me like the Velvet Revolver albums, where it's like, okay, this is trying to sound like just 2000s kind of rock. It's supposed to be catchier a little bit, maybe more for the radio. But I dig that, like, it was a different sound for Vaden. It was a different, like, it wasn't just him trying to do the Toadies again. And I feel like on this album, they're trying to cater to their fans of like, oh, they'll like this type of song. Like, it's easy to sing along to, it's not too complex, it's got a good groove. But I would argue maybe the songs on this album don't have that great of a groove, aren't as catchy, aren't like, I don't know, it kind of makes me a little mad if you can't already tell, because like, I thought this album could have been a lot better. And I've been waiting for the Toadies not only to release a new album and new music, but to release something that I really enjoy again. Because, yeah, growing up, they were a band that I got into. And I feel like they were a band that aren't talked about enough. And they have other fantastic albums just other than Rubberneck. But sadly, on this album, there's not even enough for me to really talk about. There's not enough great things about this album that make me just want to keep talking about it. But there's also nothing super bad about this album where it's like, I need to just kind of keep going on and on about how this is, not great and how this is boring. Like, I think boring is the best word to say. Like, and it's unfortunate because I hate calling music boring. And but I feel like this band has better standards. I feel like this album could have been stronger. And I will say I don't take enjoyment from writing or recording a review where I'm negative, because it's easy to do, and I think like some reviewers take pleasure in that. But I don't. But at the same time, I also don't want to, like, pander to the band and go, like, well, if they ever see this, like, I would hate for a band I love to see me talk negative about them. But again, it's not like, I still think people, fans should give the album a listen, because I think maybe I might be in the minority here. I might be a fan of the band who, like, just doesn't like it, but most other fans do. But I don't know. This album, it's not going to be one I go out on my way to buy. It's not going to be one I'm going to listen to probably again and again. Maybe I got to give it some time. Maybe it'll be one of those albums where once I go back and listen to it again, I'll go, oh, I was missing out. And I would love if that happened, because I would love to actually like this album more than I do. But as of right now, I mean, I hate to say this album gets like a 5.5, which I know for a lot of people that sounds like I gave it an F. But, like, 5 out of 10 actually is kind of where mid should be. A lot of people, when they say something is mid, they actually say, oh, it's pretty bad, like it's below standard. But, like, 5 out of 10, like, it could have been worse. Like, it could have been something that I stopped listening after one listen and gone, I hate this, I hate the production, I hate the lyrics, I hate, the music. And that's not the case, because I can listen to it and enjoy some aspects. There's some songs on this album I do like. I still like Damage. I still really enjoy the album opener. Normal, I think I really would have dug the kind of more laid back feel if it wasn't him singing fucking normal a bunch. Like, it got to the point where I actually like when singers swear in songs. I have nothing against him. I think a cool swear can add to a song. He used the word fuck too much in this song. There's parts of this album I enjoy, but then there's a majority of it I just can't really get behind. So, unfortunately, this will not be an album I'll return to a bunch. But maybe in the future when I do come back to it, I can appreciate it more. But I'd love to hear from fans of the band. Do you enjoy this album? Do you think I'm wrong in this review? Do you think it's actually, one of their better albums in the last couple of decades? Was this worth the wait? Because, again, I think that was part of it, too. We waited so long for this album for me to not really love it. Let us know what you think. But that'll be it for this episode. But until the next video, again, we thank you for watching this, for leaving a comment. We appreciate your time. We hope you take care, and you'll be hearing from us soon. Bye-bye.